Welcome to Bon Jovi Discussions. Today I have my buddy from Pittsburgh, Corey. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. How are you, Jer?
I'm doing good, good, good. So today we are going to talk about this bad boy right here, This Left Feels Right, which is a hit or a miss in the fan base because some fans love it, such as myself. There's other fans that don't love it as much, but that's okay. Um, some background information though before we go. It was released on November 4th, 2003, and this is quite a bit of a turn the band had did because it's pretty much a greatest hits album, but it's, as John would say, a greatest hits with a twist. And I guess we'll get into that here in a second. It was produced by John and Richie and Patrick Leonard. And like I just said, it was a new version of hits. It was more of a kind of like a slower album, somber, very soulful. This is one of those albums where I've had like a really long day and I just come home, have a glass of wine, and put it on. It's relaxing for me. I know it wasn't a success of an album, but still it's in my top five favorite albums. Let's talk about the album cover real quick. Let's hear your thoughts on this album.
So I stand by this, and this is probably the most positive thing that I think most fans could agree on. This is probably one of their best album covers of all time.
Yeah.
Because if you just look at this album, and for me anyway, if you look at that suitcase, that's like the coolest thing ever. It has all the band's different logos from over the years, the different fonts and everything. And then and obviously we know this is not John sitting there, but this could be, John sitting there.
Here's the thing. People have said, and I don't know what to believe, but if I remember, there was an interview that John said that was him on the photo because he
heard that too.
I can still pick, I can't remember what show, and I can't find anywhere on YouTube, but I remember during the promo days, he did say that was him on a suitcase saying where he was going with his career. So I don't know if he meant it figuratively but if you look at it, it looks like John.
And it very well could be. I've always been under the impression it's not.
Yeah.
But to me, this is like one of those, like, Bon Jovi is not, I would say they're not known for their iconic album covers. Like They're not the Stones or the Beatles or, but this is something like, where you see it and like, you're like, okay, the logo's cool with the, the arrow and the circle. And if this wasn't a greatest hits album, you could still see this being an album cover.
Exactly. The one thing that I really like, and I think this album has so much meaning behind it, because if you think about it, say this was John, you see all the band's different logos from 1984 to 2003. Okay. So this shows where they've been. Okay. Yeah. You see John on a suitcase going somewhere. So it's also showing where they're going, where they've been, where they're going. And reason I say that is because look at the song Last Man Standing that was going to be on this album, but later was put on Box and Have a Nice Day, two different versions. It was all about where music was going. And I think it was Bon Jovi entering a new era of the way the music industry is now, if that makes sense. So that might be looking too much in depth with it, but I always kind of interpreted that album cover like that.
I mean, I think you're 100% correct. The line in the song is, we all know, or we don't know where it's going. We all know where it's been, from Last Man Standing. And that this could clearly be that.
Yeah.
Like, you look at this, and if that song was on this album, and let's say this was a brand new album, Last Man Standing would have been a single, probably, if this was a brand new album and there were no greatest hits. I mean, that would have been, this is where they've been, and now where are we going with it?
So. Exactly. Yep, exactly. Let's, I guess I want to talk about this gem right here, the DVD, because it is such a good show. And I know that you went to the show, and we're going to talk about that. One of my biggest regrets, I was 11 years old when this album came out. My dad didn't take me to see the shows, unfortunately. So one of the shows I always wish I could have gone to was Wembley '95, and then this show here, the 2 nights. I wish they would have done a tour, but the whole conflict was that I've talked to some general fans, nothing wrong with that. And they're like, oh, yeah, I went to that Atlantic City show in 2003, but it was weird because they played Living on a Prayer and it wasn't Living on a Prayer. I was like, oh, you went and saw the This Life Feels Right promo show. So I think this show, I think they could have done like a small tour with this and done like theaters, and like a lot of the diehards would gone to it. But I want to ask you, what was it like to actually be there?
So I dug this out this morning.
Love it.
You can see it. So
Mhm.
and so in 2003, I was probably 18 years old, 19 years old maybe. And I remember the album coming out, and we kind of knew if you were a member of the Backstage with John Bon Jovi fan club, you got the magazines and stuff like that. We kind of knew that this album or these two shows were promoting this album. Like
Right.
they were going to play the album top to bottom. And then when I got there, because I went alone to the show, my dad took me, and I went alone inside, which was weird in itself because it was in a hotel, like a casino.
Yeah.
And and it was weird because the people around me were obviously older. They were, they had more money than I did because a lot of the people there were rich. I mean, it was at Atlantic City in a time when Atlantic City was booming. And here I am, some, 19-year-old kid at the show. And you could see the people, because I wasn't down front with like the diehards, like they had the tables, and those were like the fan club people. Like they knew what was going on. I was kind of like in the back. It was kind of like on a slant,
Right.
and people were like, what is going on? Because they open with Love for Sale, and people like, okay, yeah, I kind of know this song. I kind of remember it from New Jersey, but
Yeah.
okay, they're going to get into it, right? Then I believe they went into Wanted, and people were like, or no, did they go? What was the second song on that the show?
The DVD was Bad Name.
Okay, and then that was like the typical number 2 Bon Jovi song of almost every tour, but it was like this like jazz, like Michael Bublé style version of Bad Name, and people were like, what is going on? And then I think they did, Wanted, and then it was like, okay, and you got that intro, which was very similar to the record. And people were like, okay, and then when Living on a Prayer came on, people were like, this is not what we signed up for. Now I was enjoying it because I knew what I signed up for. I knew what I was going to see. I was going to see something special. What I didn't know I was getting was, Love for Sale, Misunderstood, Someday I'll Be Saturday Night, the 2 new songs, and then Blood on Blood at the end.
Sylvia's
And what I really didn't know probably in my top 5 Bon Jovi covers of all time is Sylvia's Mother. And I had never heard that song up until that night. And when I left there, I couldn't get it out of my head. And I had to live with the Dr. Hook version, which is a little bit different. Dr. Hook doesn't have a nice voice like, John did and Richie does. So it was like, oh, this is a weird version, until I finally was able to, get, an unofficial copy of the soundboard that night on eBay like weeks later. And then I just remember playing it over and over and over again on my iPod. So,
Yeah.
But it was a really weird night. I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. But I'm kind of like you probably when you go to shows. If you go to a Bon Jovi show and they don't play Living on a Prayer, but they play Into the Echo, you probably think it's the greatest thing in the world.
Yep. Then
where the person next to you is like, what is this? I don't know this.
Yeah.
Or, and that's really what it is. It's like you're splitting the fans. Like, yes, you're playing songs that we know, but those aren't the versions and memories that I have of those songs. And I think that's what John said when he's like, you don't mess with people's memories. Like, and I think that's kind of where it was. People were going thinking, okay, we're going to see Bon Jovi's greatest hits. And what they got was Bon Jovi's greatest hits, but like a lounge act.
Right. It's weird because with every Bon Jovi release, post Slippery, every album was always successful.
Yeah.
And This Life Feels Right just stands out. And like I said in the beginning, it's either you love it or you hate it, And, like you said, you don't mess with people's memories. It's just, the reason I love it so much is because maybe it's because I'm a post, I became a fan in 2000. And so I made memories to this album. My parents were going through a divorce that year. And so like this album was something that made me happy and gave me hope, and I just enjoy it. And I love hearing, I'm a huge acoustic fan. I love hearing songs being broken down. Like I posted a poll on Twitter the other day about Never Say Goodbye. I wanted to know if people like the electric version more or the acoustic version more. I love hearing songs broken down. And I'm glad you mentioned about like Misunderstood and Saturday Night, Joey. It was nice to hear those songs kind of acoustic.
I will say that like when they do those songs like Joey, for instance, like I feel like if you ever had a friend that shows you like they bought something new and you look at it and you're like, oh, well, that's what you bought. Like if they show, oh, this is my new car,
Yeah.
Jerry, and you look at it, you're like, oh, that's really not really a nice car, but hey, if you like it, you like it. I feel like Joey's one of those songs for John, where John really likes that song and thinks
Yep.
it's one of his best written songs, and he relates to it. Whereas I think the fans, especially the diehard fans, are like, maybe that is not the representation that when you say, hey, Bon Jovi, you don't play someone Joey. Like that's kind of,
Yeah.
I get where John was going with the Elton John kind of feel. And with this album in particular, you mentioned Patrick Leonard. We all know John loves certain artists, and like he mentions, like there's like 5 or 6 artists who mentions all the time. Leonard
Right.
Cohen, Tom Petty, Bob Dylan, those and Patrick Leonard has worked with Leonard Cohen a lot. So I think that's how Patrick Leonard got involved in this somehow. Like I think John kind of like seeked him out kind of like as a fan and was like, hey, I want to work with him because he worked with Leonard Cohen.
Yeah.
He worked with, Pink Floyd in their later days when they were trying experimental stuff. Not the Patrick Leonard that worked with Madonna on True Blue or, Like a Prayer. I mean, he's worked with some of John's idols, really.
Yeah.
And I think that's how they got hooked up together, which is a good thing. I mean, we all want to meet our heroes, and if you're in the industry, I think you want to work with your heroes. That's like your way of being like a fanboy or a fangirl.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
One other thing, Blood on Blood was also on here too. Every Day, that version was good. Every Day. Another thing about this, before we get into the tracks, another thing that I really liked about this DVD was the bonus disc, and they had like shows from Hyde Park from the Bounce tour. So
the saving grace for that DVD was those shows. There were those clips from Hyde Park.
Yeah.
I mean, because I thought for sure we were going to get that show as a DVD. Like I thought that Hyde Park show with the 93,000 people was going to be a full blown DVD. And then it's just you had to play the slot machines to get those tracks unless you kind of like just skipped ahead of that.
Yeah.
Which was weird.
Well, back then that was like fun to do. But now you get that as something new. You're like, what the hell is this? Just show me what it is. But that's one thing I want to say about this album or DVD is that I was so happy that they included like Every Day, Misunderstood, Joey, because I know it was right after Bounce came out, so those songs were relatively fresh and they were still trying to promote it. But say if John was to release this now instead of 2003, I doubt any Bounce songs would have made this album.
Bounce songs didn't even make the Greatest Hits album that came out a few years ago.
That's true.
I mean, 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, every album I think is represented on that 2-disc set except for Bounce, which I get because in the UK, Bounce was a #1 album. I think it was successful over there, maybe went platinum. But here in the States, Bounce was, I mean, by all accounts, Bounce in This Left Feels Right was kind of a disappointment for probably the record label and for the band after Crush.
Right.
As much as I love Bounce and loves the songs on it, and I do enjoy this album, if you're looking from a marketing standpoint or a sales standpoint, it's a disappointment. And then you rebound with Have a Nice Day, with the #1 hit of Who Says You Can't Go Home, which kind of like really saved the band and let it keep going, to be honest with you, I think. Because at this point, they're 2 albums in, and I believe that This Left Feels Right is the only Bon Jovi album up until probably the newer ones where no one buys physical media anymore that hasn't gone gold in the United States. I don't think it sold 500,000 copies in the States, which is crazy to me.
Yeah. It's the digital era.
I think once you stamp, greatest hits on this record, someone's going to buy it thinking they're getting 12 of the greatest Bon Jovi songs of all time.
Yeah.
And when they put it in, they're like, well, this isn't what I, wanted,
I have actually had friends just that weren't even fans of the band. They're like, oh yeah, I like, the hits, And so actually some of my friends have bought this album, put it in there, go, what the this is Wanted and blah blah blah. I'm like, well, which and they text and I automatically assume what album they got. I said, oh, you got This Life Feels Right, not Crossroads or the Ultimate 2011 box. And so, but
It's always funny to me if you have like Amazon Music or Prime or Apple Music, like when you type in Bon Jovi, like their greatest hits, like for some reason, like something from this album always pops up because people start playing it and then
yeah,
they realize that it's not what they want to hear.
no,
Like they just see Wanted Dead or Alive, like, oh, I want to listen to Wanted, but it's not the Wanted they know. It's like the Led Zeppelin Wanted Dead or Alive.
yeah.
Which it is what it is.
So let's start digging into the album. The first track is Wanted Dead or Alive, and it was actually the first and technically the only single. It's My Life was technically a single too, but it was right here, brother. Look at that.
I was actually looking at it this morning, and I was like, I never turned in this coupon to get $2 off instantly for my Duracell batteries.
I know, me too.
I was like, I wonder if I can still turn this in.
Let's see when it expired in June 30th, 2004. So we had a good 6 months to get it.
Yeah, we missed out. Although I bet you probably could still bring this to CVS and get this.
They're probably going to look at the expiration date. Okay.
Yeah, maybe if I have to go to CVS to get my vaccine soon, hopefully I can bring this and get a pair of Duracell batteries.
One thing I did like about this single though is that they put The Distance live on as a second track on this.
Yeah, real quick, I wanted to bring that up too, and I don't want to drift off too far, but I've always wondered, and this is where, like, I know you're a member of the John Bon Jovi Experience. I didn't sign up, but this is something that I wish they would do. Because we know that Yokohama show was filmed, recorded for professional release. And we know, and I know this because, again, back in the early 2000s, and I'm sure you did too, but like eBay was, if you wanted a show, you could go there the day after the show and buy that show on a CD. And it was like the greatest time to be a music fan because people were recording the stuff and you could buy it. I have like a 3-disc version of that Yokohama show, which, was an audience recording, but it was pretty good. And I know the band was sick and they didn't release it. I always wonder if that had came out instead of This Left Feels Right, what would have happened? Because to me, that Yokohama, because some of the stuff that they have put out from it, whether it be Have a Little Faith in Me, The Distance, Joey, or even Heroes from that show, I think it sounds amazing.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And I don't know if it's just John's too protective because he didn't like the way he felt that night versus, what it actually sounds like. Because, I don't like how my voice sounds sometimes, and you probably are the same way, but maybe other people do.
Yeah, exactly. The thing, and John has mentioned it too, I think the biggest thing is he himself is his biggest critic because he's positive about something, but then he'll turn around and say, nah, I don't want to do this. And every artist is like that. Every artist will plan something whether we know it or not. I'm sure there's a dozen of ideas that John has had. It's like, oh, let's do this, and then a few days later, he's like, well, let's not do that. So I'm with you. I wish it was released too. Maybe one day. I feel like with 40 years coming up, I think we're gonna get something massive and a true box set for the diehards.
It's amazing what the artist thinks is the right thing to do. Like, John's admittedly said that This Left Feels Right wasn't the right direction to go. You know what I mean? Like, so at the time, it's amazing how he could say, okay, that show wasn't the right thing to release, but to steer from an acoustic show to doing a whole album of different songs, like different versions. Where's the connect to that? Like, how do you get from point A to point, Z plus? Because that's really what this was.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I'm more of the type of person I was like, okay, I just go with the flow. Whatever the band releases, I say, okay, I like it. Or actually, I haven't really found an album I don't like. But like I said, I love this album. I know it's a hit or miss. But let's dig into the tracks.
Yeah.
So Wanted Dead or Alive. I think this is actually the best opener. If you listen to all the tracks, this is truly the best opener on that album. I love the guitar, I love that sound, and then how John's vocals are kind of. See, I'm not in the music, and so I don't know how he makes that sound, but he has that unique. He's kind of like far away from the mic, but he's also close. Kind of
sounds like an old record, kind of like a it sounds like it's coming out like an old speaker or something. Like it's got a weird like echo. I know what you're saying, and a weird echo to it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I love it. And then I also love in the bridge where he adds instead of what was it in the chorus? I'm trying to think of what he says. Oh, is the same old me, same old band. I've been everywhere, standing tall. I've seen a million faces. I've seen an awful lot of faces. You know, I
Yeah.
love how he kind of changed that up a little bit to be present. It's like I said, you know, like when Wanted Their Life came out, that's when they were starting out, and you know, with the whole logo thing, where they've been, where they're going, you know. Um, so what's your take on the song?
So I remember it being, and this is like again the early 2000s, before social media, before YouTube, them making a big deal on the Dry County fan boards. If you remember those back in the day, there was a website called Jovi Talk Dry County,
I
and
remember.
I still get a birthday
I
wish from them
remember.
every year on my birthday, and I think the site's been shut down for like 5 years. But
No, I think that they're. I thought the same. Side note, I thought the same too. But I think they came back a couple years ago. I don't
did
follow
they?
them. Yeah,
I mean, I haven't been on
it's,
the site in years, but that used to be like the place to go because
I
backstage
remember.
Jovi wasn't that message board was like fire and ice. That's like that makes Twitter look like tame compared to what that used to be like back in
Oh
the day.
my gosh, there was a lot of fights on there. I
I mean,
tell.
I still remember there was a girl named Mary Beth, and I remember all of this stuff because I mean I have like a memory for like just dumb stuff. But I remember I remember getting ready to go to school. And I was a freshman in college, I think at the time, and they were getting ready to debut it on PLJ. And Scott Race was the guy, the big DJ at the time for them, and he did a lot of stuff with Bon Jovi. And they were getting ready to debut, and I was like, I gotta hear this. But like, there was really no way to hear it because I didn't live in New York City. I live in Pittsburgh, and you could like stream online, but it was like you had to have an account and all that, so I didn't get to hear it right away. But then when I did hear it, I was like, okay, this is because again, you really didn't have it. Like you just think, oh, they're Bon Jovi's releasing a new version of Wanted Dead or Alive, and you think it's an acoustic version. Then you hear this, and you kind of hear that like Kashmir, Led Zeppelin kind of sound. And like, what is this? And I loved it when I first heard it. And I could see why people get turned off, especially like you said, if they've been a fan of the band since the '80s. But when I first heard it, I thought it was like one of the greatest things I ever heard in my life. You
Yeah.
know, and now as I'm older and I've been around it a little bit longer, I could see where people would be upset about it. You know, but yeah, I enjoyed it.
Let me ask you.
Mm-hmm.
So, Wanted from Slippery When Wet album, Wanted on This Life Feels Right. Which version do you prefer more?
Those are my only two choices.
Yeah.
Okay. I prefer the Slippery version.
Okay.
Okay.
I would pick This Life Feels Right version.
Wow. Now
Don't
there is
get
a version on this album of a song that I would pick over probably their biggest hit of all time.
say that last part again.
I said there is a version of a song on this album that I would pick over probably their biggest hit of all time.
Well, surprise because we're gonna do that each track.
Yeah.
But yeah, so everyone asks me, okay, which version do you like? Because everyone knows how much I love this album. They're like, do you like Wanted in this album or that? And I go, This Life Feels Right, just because it has that funkier, reinventive sound. Don't get me wrong, the Slippery When Wet version is great, but I love the hits, but it's not something I always go and listen to. If I do listen to a hit, it's usually live or acoustic or some kind of special version. It's very rare I ever listen to an actual album hit, if that makes sense. I still do, but
no, I mean, I totally. I think if you're in I don't want to say the diehard fandom that we're in here. I think most of the time when I put on Bon Jovi on my iPod, it's a live version of a song that I really enjoy. Like you said, like Living on a Prayer. I hardly ever listen to the actual album song, but like if you put on the One Wild Night version, like the bonus one with the acoustic or the acapella intro or something like that, I'll listen to that all day.
When you do listen to one of the hits, like if you listen to Living on a Prayer on the Slippery album, it reminds you about how amazing they are and why they are as big as they are. Like you said, we're diehard fans, so we're into the deeper stuff. But you kind of go back and think, wow, this is pretty cool. And this song is actually really good. There's no wonder why this became a number one. But now that we're speaking of Living on a Prayer, let's go to the next track, which is Living on a Prayer. obviously throughout the years we were used to hearing this acoustic because John would do it live with Richie acoustic sometimes. It was actually recorded, and I might pronounce her name wrong, Olivia D. Boss or something like that.
Mhm.
But there's a Russian version that actually has a different singer on it, and her name was like Asal or something like that, some Russian name.
It's weird, yeah.
Yeah, and so, but she recorded it, and I think she actually went to John's house to record it. But Universal Music Group and her decided not to put her voice on all the editions, just the Russian edition. So Olivia did the rest of the editions throughout the world. So, but I thought their harmonies were good. Whatever version you would listen to, it was really good. I kind of do wish that John would have done this by himself, like with Richie, and just done like a John and Richie type acoustic.
Yeah, so two things. If they did do just the acoustic version like you're saying, it would kind of be a rehash of Prayer 94. So
Yeah,
I think I kind of see why they went a different way with it. Because honestly, the Tommy and Gina duet, it makes sense. It's a perfect fit.
that's a good point. Yeah.
I don't know if Olivia was the right choice, and this is where maybe the negative side will come out. I don't know if Olivia gets this gig unless she's married to Patrick Leonard at the time. That was his wife.
No,
So
okay. See, I never knew that.
yeah, so they were married. Olivia, and you're a little bit younger than I am, but her claim to fame was when she was on the show The Wonder Years.
Okay.
And she was she was the older sister on The Wonder Years. And she was married to Patrick Leonard at the time. I think they were married for like 3 years at the time. And I'm assuming that's how she got the gig. Like Patrick was like, "Hey, we're doing a duet." And Patrick's like, "Oh, well, my wife's a singer. She has a folk album out. Check her out." And
Oh,
maybe
okay.
that's how this kind of got intertwined. I don't know. I'm not accusing that. I mean, she's got a good voice. I will give her that. But I just think that to do a song like that in 2003, Bon Jovi's Bon Jovi. They could have gotten any artist to do this. Like in 2003, you got to think if they're going to do a duet of this song, who are the females out there that could have done this song? Like Shania Twain was like the biggest star in the world at that time. She's not going to turn down Bon Jovi. She could have done this song. If they're going to go that route, why not go it with somebody that people know? Or the other argument is go with someone that nobody knows. That way, if it doesn't work out, then nobody really cares,
Exactly. You're right, and I think I didn't realize that she was his wife. So I was
Yeah.
also kind of wondering where he found her. So I'm glad you mentioned that tonight. Like that he could have done this with anybody. But anyway, one thing that I really like about this song though is the ending, where how he closed it with like "Take my hand, I'll take your hand."
Yeah.
I love that.
It's a more of a personal touch to the song. You're telling a story, really. Obviously, it's a story song, but that's more of a you're really tying it in with Tommy and Gina at that point. We're past the diner and the docks. So it's about the two of them in love.
Yep, exactly. Let's go to the next one, Bad Medicine. Now this is actually, oh, we got to back up. Which version do you prefer more, Slippery or this I Feels Right version of Living on Prayer?
Prayer 94.
Okay.
To be difficult for you, Jerry. Prayer 94.
You know what? I already know your answer. It'd be Slippery, wouldn't it? It would. It would for me.
It would be because I think the biggest thing about the Slippery version, number one, it's like one of the biggest rock songs of all time, top 5. It doesn't say it's a top 5 rock song of all time. Yeah. When people hear that talk box intro, like they lose their mind no matter where you go. I mean, you could be at a bar, you could be at Giant Stadium, you could be at a backyard barbecue. When they hear that, people go crazy.
Yeah.
And they're ready to scream at the top of their lungs. When they hear this version, I think people were like maybe folding their laundry on a Saturday night. I would have to go Slippery if I can't go Prayer 94.
Okay. See, now I'm with you. I'd pick Prayer 94, then I'd pick Slippery, then I'd pick This That Feels Right.
Yeah.
Next one, Bad Medicine. Now this is actually my favorite hit song by the band. The New Jersey version. I loved what they did with this song, especially with like how Richie played his guitar. I can't make the sounds, but it just, what I'm talking about. Anybody that's watched this will know, is
It's like
how
a
he,
circle he puts on his finger in the video. I don't know
yeah,
what that
like,
does. Yeah, it's like a
yeah,
yeah.
I'm not flipping you off.
No,
Yeah,
it's been a long
um,
day. But yeah, I don't know what that does, but whatever it does do, some musician will probably comment and say, "Oh, you guys have no idea what we're talking about." But it's whatever that sound is, it's cool.
yeah, because he does it too on "Summertime" from Lost Highway.
Yes.
So, and "Seat Next to You" as well. But anyway, so another thing that really, the two things stand out for me: the guitar and then John's vocals, especially the part where he's gonna take more than a shot to get the poison out of me, and then in the second verse, I don't need a needle to be giving me a thrill. I don't need no anesthesia nor a nurse to bring a pill. I love how it's a different direction from the first two songs, because the first two songs, are kind of like easy going, but then Bad Medicine kind of picks up a little bit, and John adds a little more passion in his vocals, a little more. I don't want to say anger. There's no anger there, but kind of like, I'm lost for words right now. But you know what I mean? How he kind of raises his voice in the
Yeah.
verses.
So the
It,
way
it,
I
it's
always
enticing. It pulls you in.
the way I've always viewed this version, and this is maybe just me being me, I view this as like the dirty version of Bad Medicine. Like if you remember when they did Let's Make It Baby was like a big thing, and then there was like the dirty version where it sounds like there's more like John's voice is like more sexualized or whatever. This sounds like it's kind of like a seductive, like he's like kind of I don't know. I feel like he's like, and obviously this is geared more towards females, but like it's like an enticing version of the song.
Yeah.
Like it's more sexualized, like, and not in like a dirty way, but like kind of like a raunchy, like kind of like a tease, like kind of
Yeah.
like a strip tease, like
Yep.
you know what I mean? And that's what to me it sounds like. And if you watch the DVD version from that show in Atlantic City, I mean, he's got every girl there eating out of the palm of his hands, like he does for any show, obviously.
I was gonna say that every
But
show.
but with this, it's like it was like oh wow, okay, like this is more mature, and like this is like a okay, I get where it's like slow and grooving and like kind of like a dirty, like yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like it.
And the chorus is fun to sing along to. Just the way that your love is like bad.
Yeah.
I love that. Just the flow of it. It's so easy. It's so just easy to listen to. Which version do you prefer more? New Jersey or this version?
You're killing me here because on all of these songs, I would never pick the album version of a song, but I'm gonna pick the original.
See, I'm with you. You can't beat, like I said, it's
like, can you beat that keyboard at the beginning of Bad Medicine? Like when you hear that didn't, what's coming up.
Yeah, and it's so fun. Like that's the one hit I always love seeing live because it's so energetic, and I put it during my workouts, and it pumps me out. I just love it.
So
Let's go.
I was gonna say real quick, my father, he's no longer with me, but he's older, obviously. He was in his, in his late 40s. And my parents never listened to Bon Jovi. Like my parents stopped listening to music like when they were like young. So all those 80s bands, they just never knew of.
Yeah.
But my dad, the two songs that hooked him on Bon Jovi were Captain Crash, which I have no idea why, but I get it for him. And then was a live version of Bad Medicine. My dad always thought it was the coolest thing, and he probably saw them with me maybe 8 or 9 times over the years because I would always drag him just because I needed someone to go with, is when John would say, "Is there a doctor in the house?" I don't know why, but my dad just thought that was the funniest thing ever because it's like it's a song about medicine and it's like, is there a doctor in the house? And that, I think, that's why I would always pick a live version of that song better.
Oh yeah.
But if I had to, I would pick, the studio version.
I'm with you. Next one is "It's My Life." So I remember this was technically a second single, and it was digital. Yep, there it is.
Yeah.
I actually have mine
down. Cover. I don't know why, but
yeah, it's the same cover. I actually have mine downstairs. I brought up just a handful, but I really enjoy this song because it's very intimate. Especially because this was the song that started it all for me back in 2000. The regular version, obviously. So this version is more intimate. It pulls you in. And what really stands out for me is that it's a John and David types. I love it when it's pretty much just John and David.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a little bit of other instruments in it, but mainly it's John and David, and it's just like the chorus, when John sings, "It's my life, it's now or never," like you really feel because if you listen to the regular version, it's very anthematic. It's very put your hands up in the air, sing along, very confident type song. When you hear it acoustic, I think it takes you to a different level. I think it takes you more, I want to say, believing in yourself. I know you do that with the regular version, but there's just something about this one that makes you really feel the song.
Yeah.
And of course, obviously on the DVD, it's an incredible performance.
Yeah.
What's your take?
So you said "It's My Life" it was the reason you became a fan. So real quick to backtrack, I became a fan in '94 because I fell in love with the music video "Always." As a young boy, those two girls, Rebecca Gayheart and I think Gina something, like there was like, oh, these beautiful women in this song that just crushed me, and
Yeah.
and I was like, this is great. I love this song. And then Bon Jovi kind of disappeared after '94 in the United States. Like these days didn't really take off, in the States. I mean, you kind of knew they were around and I saw them and I was around, but when I heard "It's My Life," I was like, okay, this is a band. And that's when I really got into Crossroads and all that stuff. So it was around the same time, but I knew them before and I'd had their stuff before. But when they came back, it was like a whole new band.
Yeah.
That being said, I prefer and I'm spoiling your question at the end.
That's right.
I prefer this version of "It's My Life" over the original.
Really? Okay. So this would actually be a hard one for me to choose. Just because I like the anthem to it, and the song is what started it all for me as a fan. I probably had to pick the Crush version.
Yeah. See, I again, the lyrics don't change at all in the song, really, but what does change is my mood when I hear the song. To me, this version of "It's My Life" is kind of, I hate to say it, but for me, it's kind of heartbreaking. I don't know. I kind of like, I don't know. It's like, it's his life, or when I play it, it's kind of heartbreaking for me. Like I think of all the things I wish I could have done or done differently or keep doing whatever. And I realize that maybe, we're not going to be here forever. It's my life. It's now or never, that's kind of where so for me, the one song on this album that if you ask me which one are you going to pick over the original, it's definitely this one. And if I had to, I would much rather go to a show and hear this version of "It's My Life" than the original. That's never going to happen. But, unless it's a charity show or something. But
yeah, I've seen it live acoustic a few times, I believe. I saw it on the cruise, obviously, 2 years ago, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
To see him, he got up and sang it. It's great to hear live.
And this is one the DVD. Sorry to interrupt you, but people were like, "What? Like, why? Like, we thought we were hearing "It's My Life," and what is this?" Like,
especially with that being a new at the time. That would only been a 3-year-old hit at the time, so that would still be a relevant, huge hit still.
Yeah.
And so people are like, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah.
Let's go to the next one. "Lay Your Hands on Me." One of the things I really love about this song is the chorus, hearing the band and the background vocals, and then the way John comes, it's like the band is like, "Lay your hands on me," and then like John's like louder, he overpowers it, and you go, "Lay your,"
It's got a swing to it.
Yeah, I love that. Another thing that stands out to me too is the way Richie plays the 12-string. I believe this is the one he plays 12-string on.
Yeah,
I believe so.
Maybe.
Anyway, it sounds good. What is your take on it?
I like the intro, the little dun, 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 like I like that. This is one of those ones where I'm like, the intro to the original is so iconic to me, especially live. Yeah. I mean, you can't get past that to me.
Yeah.
Especially, like I said, live when him and David and Tika are battling with the keyboards and the to me, it's like the coolest thing ever. And it's one of the big, they stopped doing "Lay Your Hands on Me" live for years. And then when they brought it back now, it's like they don't do the drum intro. And it's kind of like, why? It's like, you know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't do "It's My Life" without the talk box. I mean, unless it's broken for some reason, which I've seen nights where it has been broken. But it's like, you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't do "Wanted" without that acoustic intro. But this, it's like you drop the most famous part of the song sometimes live. But with this, it's like I miss those drums. I like this version, but I miss it.
Yeah, the thing is, I can see why they didn't put the drums in because Tico's barely, unfortunately, Tico's barely, I mean, he does have the percussion. You can hear him here and there. But I think if you were to do something to resemble that, I think it would pull away from the feel, the vibe of the whole album and the song. So I can see why they took it out.
Yeah.
I'm going to go on a limb here and say that the New Jersey version's your favorite over this one.
Yeah.
Okay. Me too. I'm with you. I enjoyed this version, but
But it has to be the Jersey one with the intro. Don't give me the radio edit where they just go straight in. You know, and honestly, I wish the album version had more of like the video version where it's more of John talking. You know, it's like,
oh yeah,
you know, yeah. I wish there was more of that, but it has to be the Jersey version.
Next one is "You Give Love a Bad Name." This one is similar to "Bad Medicine." I think it's very seductive, teasing. For women, I think it's very fun to like you get that groove, and you do hear more of Tico on percussion, I think, on this song. I think this is like when you really start hearing Tico on the album. And one other thing I love about this song too is that small build-up before he gets into the chorus.
Okay.
What's your take on it?
This is the one song in the album where I can't stand it, and here's why. I think of they think of like your favorite rock star, right? And then they go do a song like Rod Stewart for a while. Like Rod Stewart was like the height of his rock star powers, and he's singing like lounge songs. Like this was like, to me, was like totally like, I get what they were going with. Like it's like Bon Jovi in Vegas or whatever, and like there's like 50 people watching you, and people are snapping their fingers. I get it, but I can't jive with this one.
Yeah. See,
like, I just can't.
See, what saved me for this song? This is one of my least favorites on the album, but I still enjoy it. But what saved me, like I said, was that pre-chorus. Like when he goes, "Oh, you're a loaded gun. There's nowhere to run. There's no one going." And then it starts to, and you hear Tico going, and then boom, you're into the chorus. So that's what pulls me into the song.
Yeah. Now I will say the DVD version is 100 times to me better than the CD version, obviously. Because with the fan interaction, you can get people involved more, obviously, because it is a fan interactive song to begin with. Yeah. But when you're just, I mean, for me anyway, just driving in a car or whatever, I probably would never put that version on.
Yeah.
Even at the time, I probably wouldn't have.
Let's go to the next one. The next one is like one of my absolute favorites on this album, "Bed of Roses." And it's amazing. I love hearing David playing on piano, like in the beginning. Like obviously with the regular version, you have Richie on guitar doing the intro. But what I love about this, it was just David, and it kind of had a spotlight on David. And it's so easy going, and I love the way when it gets into the song, JVJ and David kind of come together and play it, and the chorus. I think is so fun to sing along to. If you're in a car and you're driving, you're listening, you can't help but sing along to it. This version has a lot of passion in it, I believe. Not as much passion as the original, obviously, but I think this is one of those songs on this album when they were recording. I think John wanted to make sure, like I said, I think John wanted to make sure that he added the passion that he did when he recorded back in '92. So, what is your take?
So this version to me, and I've heard this version probably, besides the night I saw it at Atlantic City, I probably heard it maybe 3 or 4 times after that live, because they were doing it during the Have a Nice Day tour a lot. Yeah. And I'm almost positive they did it at Giant Stadium. I know they did Always at Giant Stadium that year when they had those 3 nights there. I think they did Always the night that it was pouring down rain the first night, if I remember correctly. This I enjoy it. I get where it's coming from. To me, this is kind of like it's a more somber feel to it. Like it's more of a kind of like the Hangover version of Bed of Roses, really. Like like it's mellow. There's no screaming really, or not screaming, but power behind it. It's more like low key. And I do enjoy this version. And I enjoy the piano part at the beginning.
Yeah.
Versus the guitar. I prefer the guitar, but I do enjoy the piano part.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go on a limb and say Keep the Faith version your favorite over this one.
Yes.
I'm with you, but it would be so if you're to do a poll, Keep the Faith version would be at 51. This Life Feels Right would be at 49. It's just Keep the Faith version is just a little more my favorite than the This Life Feels Right version.
I will say, give or take, live, it wouldn't matter to me which one played.
And you know what's if you go on YouTube and you search this video, it'll ask the question, is John crying? Because I think he was sweating, but it looks like he was crying, but he wasn't. So that was a joke back in 2003 on. I remember like the talk boards, the forums on the fan club. We would ask, was he crying or, and obviously he wasn't, but I remember a lot of people would be asking about that.
Yeah.
Next one is Every Day. Now, like we said before, if John was to put this album out now instead of back in 2003, I don't think Every Day or any of the songs on Bounce would have made this album.
No chance.
But with it being Bounce coming out a year before this album came out, that's why it got put on. I do like John's vocals to it. I like the slow and how easy listening it is. It's a very relaxing. I like the keys in the background that I can't do the sound. But what I think my favorite takeaway from the song is right after the first chorus, it picks up and Tigo becomes heavier on the percussion. So it's not as easy listening, but it still is in a way. But it pulls you in. What's your...
I like the intro where John's like, and I was the kind of... Like, I like that part. It's more storytelling than the original, if you ask me.
Yeah, I agree.
You kind of can understand what he's saying. And this is probably, in all the reviews I've read and over the years and fans, I've always heard people say they prefer this version than the actual Bounce version.
No, I have to pick Bounce version.
Yeah, I mean, the Bounce version is so weird to me because it's such a short song. It's not even 3 minutes long, I don't think. Mm-mm. And it like you would think that there'd be like a longer guitar solo or something in it. And I know there's like a rock version of it where it has like a little bit of an intro difference. It's like a drum intro, and there's a kind of like but it's not what It's My Life was, and I think they were kind of trying to build off of that. So if I had to choose right now which one I was going to listen to, I would probably choose the This Left Feels Right version.
I've been waiting for this whole album for you to say This Left Feels Right version.
Well, I did on It's My Life.
Yeah, that's true, and not one I did want it. Next one is Born to Be My Baby. What I really like about this one is the country twang sound to it, and you really have to pull that off in order to make it work. And they made it work with this song. And I think that Richie also did that finger device on the guitar with this song too.
Yeah, we got to figure out what that is at some point.
I know, it's gonna bug me all night. It'll come to me when I'm like half asleep tonight. That's it. But and then I think John's verses were pretty emotional too. Like in the like when he sings "Our Love, Our Lives," there's passion in that, and I think that's what makes the song so great.
Yeah, I like the chorus a lot here, where it's like kind of like, I'm not gonna sing, but it's like "You were born to," like I like that kind of like movement that it was. As a fan of the original, I missed the 2, 3, 4, the countdown. But I can see where people would enjoy this version. It's definitely mellow.
Yeah,
I give them that.
And the one thing I like too is that, and I'm a terrible singer, but is the da 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 da. Yeah, I love that. So that's my takeaway with the song. New Jersey version or This Left Feels Right version?
New Jersey. This
Left Feels Right. Oh, New Jersey, I get, but it's just like Bed Roses. It's close.
Can we just say that Born to Be My Baby, for some, this is not to get off track here, but this is one of those songs where I don't know how this song has survived as long as it has in the set list.
Born to Be My Baby?
Yes, because it was not included on Crossroads, which is astonishing to me because it was one of their biggest hits at the time. But if you think about it, it has not disappeared from a set list since it came out.
No.
I mean,
John really
and
likes it.
besides Living on a Prayer and Wanted and You Bad Name and even It's My Life, this has been a constant. And
Yeah.
every tour, even the These Days tours, it was a constant.
Yeah.
You know, and I can't understand it because it was a huge hit. I get it, but they've had other huge hits that have just totally disappeared.
Yeah.
And this
That's
one has remained and not disappear. I mean, John must really like this song, and which it's about Dorothea probably, so I get it.
yeah.
But it's really it
I,
says something about the song.
yeah, I enjoy seeing it live. If I was asked if I want to take it out of the set list, I'd say no because I enjoy the 2, 3, 4, and then the na 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 na
I think
na.
it's one of those songs for me that if you ask somebody, oh, hey, do you like Bon Jovi? They say, oh, yeah, I like Bon Jovi. Then they would name like maybe 3 or 4 songs. This wouldn't be one of those ones. But then when they heard it, they would say, oh, yeah, I like that one too. I know that one.
Yeah.
It's not as prominent as the big hits, but it was a big hit.
Yeah. Yeah. Next one is Keep the Faith. It's a slower song. One thing I do like about this one is the band's backing vocals in the chorus. Honestly, though, it's probably one of my I like it, but it's one of my least favorites on this album.
We agree, Jerry. We
Yeah.
agree. I can't do it.
Yeah, so I guess we can both agree that Keep the Faith version was more of our favorite.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the intro to Keep Their Faith, that guitar, the maracas or whatever that John was I mean, to me, and John's vocals on the original, I mean, are just people talk about the greatest rock singers of all time. For a period, there was not many people that could touch John Bon Jovi vocally from early 80s to 96, 97. I mean, his voice was top notch.
Yeah.
And it's still, it is what it is, but I mean, it was up there with your Robert Plants and your Steven Tylers and all that. I mean, and those screams on Keep the Faith, the original version, are just mind-boggling.
Exactly. Let's go to the next one. I'll Be There For You. This is, I love it acoustic. Live, if you ever watch it on a Runway Trip, I think back in 2015 or 16, John does it acoustic. Best acoustic version I've ever seen. I wish that was kind of like on this. I always thought the verses were amazing. It had a lot of emotion and just passion into it. But the chorus kind of lacked. Like, the verses would build you up. And then the chorus, as John says, don't bore us, get to the chorus. The chorus would kind of take away that, because, like in the second verse, when he sings about, when you get drunk, I'll be there, or the Valentine line, there's a lot of, you feel it. You feel that song in you. But then you get to the chorus and it's too somber. I'll be there for you. These are, and it's like, I wish there was more of a punch to it. Other than that, I think it's great.
The verses, I think John and Richie's harmonies are amazing, which they're on.
Yeah.
They are in most songs. But I get what you're saying when they're singing like the Baby My Hands Are Dirty and all that. John's high, Richie's low. Like it works. And then when they get to the chorus, it's kind of like they just did what they did on the original song. It's like they kind of like mashed them together. Whereas like that tempo was like like you just said, I'll be there. It's like they were talking their way through the chorus. What I do enjoy about this versus the other ones is I would say It's My Life, or not It's My Life, but sorry, Wanted. When you first hear those chords in Wanted, it's Wanted, Dead or Alive.
Yep.
When you hear the guitar intro to I'll Be There For You here, it's I'll Be There For You. You know what I mean? Like it's a little different, but you can tell that it's I'll Be There For You.
Yeah. Yeah, this one probably resembles the most to the original version.
Yeah.
The intro. Obviously, I think we both can agree the New Jersey version we prefer more.
Yes.
Yeah. One thing I do want to add though is like this was when John was starting to stop doing the scream after the bridge. Because I think the Bounce tour, I think he did do it on the Have a Nice Day tour, but this is when he was starting to go in and out of doing it this night but not doing it that night. Obviously, you're not going to do the scream, right before the final chorus. Obviously, you're not going to do it on this album. It just wouldn't have worked. So I kind of like how they did that. The then all of a sudden it goes into the chorus.
And don't forget the Have a Nice Day tour. I mean, you know this, obviously. You're a huge fan. Like, Richie started doing the song a lot, too.
Yeah.
Like, that became, like, Richie's, like, they ditched Stranger with This Town, which I missed, again, as a diehard, but I see why Richie gets to shine and nobody sticks around for that song because no one knows it really, except for us, which, So Richie says, "Oh, okay, I'll Be There for You," and then people stick around. So in 2005, 2006, it became like that. That was Richie's moment.
Yeah, exactly, and that's when the scream kind of
Yeah,
faded away a little bit.
and I don't know about you, but like I always think of like McCartney and Lennon. Like what songs were more McCartney versus Lennon? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I always wonder, and obviously we're never going to get an answer to this because they probably both have different versions of it, especially now with everything that's going on. What songs were more John? Which ones were more Richie? Because if I think about it in my mind, I'm like, okay, Richie really seems to enjoy this song.
yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
he wrote more of it and John kind of just filled in. Where I think maybe John wrote more of this. I'm not saying that, but I'm just guessing.
yeah. I'm with
Maybe
you.
because if you're Richie, why would you choose "I'll Be There for You" unless that's one that you really had a big hand in writing? Like you could choose
Right.
any Bon Jovi song, like "Homebound Train."
Richie was going through a breakup, and that's how I'll Be There for You started. So I think
Yeah,
Richie did have a big hand with that one.
yeah.
But yeah, I've always wanted the same thing. Last track is Always. I absolutely love this version, and I know you and I both know, as well as a lot of other diehard fans, is that you are lucky if you get Always in the set list that night, because it's a tough one to sing, and John will only do it if he's feeling it. What I have always said, as much I love Always live, and I'll always vote for the original, seeing it live. But if in the future John says, I can't sing that song anymore, okay, sing this version then. This Life Goes Right, because it's amazing.
Jerry, if I could give you a standing ovation right now, I would, because that if anyone out there sees me and they say, "Oh, I've seen his tweets on Twitter," I have been arguing this point for probably the past 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
Like, listen, Bon Jovi's my favorite band. John has had some vocal issues recently. We're all getting older. I get it. But this version of Always, if you told me, okay, we're not going to play Always anymore, I would be disappointed. But if you played this version with a lower key
yeah,
and that emotion, I think everybody would understand.
yeah.
The
And
thing with Bed of Roses, because Bed of Roses is not an easy song to sing either. Even, and we didn't, maybe we'll touch on this afterwards, I hope, but even Blaze of Glory. They haven't done it in years, but if you do that version from 2005, I had never heard a crowd that loud at Madison Square Garden when I heard John Bon Jovi on that podium in the middle of the arena doing that. I call it the "This Left Feels Right" version of Blaze of Glory.
yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
That like, I mean, to me, that intro by Tico with those tongs or whatever he's using with the little marshmallows on it,
Yeah,
like, it's amazing.
yep,
And
I'm with you.
and people don't even know that it's not the real version because people are so into that perform. I mean, I love it, but with this version of Always, like, I wish he would do it more.
Yeah,
I don't need to see I love the version at Wembley from the This House Is Not for Sale tour that they put up on YouTube officially. And I know why I love it, because this was the song that got me into Bon Jovi. Okay, yes, the very attractive women in the video was what caught my eye, but then the song and then the band version, that's what got me into it. I just love the song, and I love the lyrics that are behind the song. So if I don't need the drums and all that anymore, I just want to hear John sing it. And this was this in these days was like my white whale of concert songs. I mean, I can't tell you how many shows I went to and I never got Always. I never got These Days. And then when I finally did get them, I was like, this was like what it was all about. You know?
Yep.
And I've seen this version live now, I think 3 times. I saw it for the DVD filming. And then I saw it at Giant Stadium. He was out on the little ramp during the Have a Nice Day. And I believe it was raining that night. I think it was the first night. And it was like a rain out, and they ended the show early because of lightning. And he did this version, and people were singing it just like it was the original. You know what I mean? Like, and I think with a song like this isn't a song like It's My Life or Wanted where people are going to be disappointed. They're just going to be happy to hear that song.
Yeah, and Always was their #1 smash hit. It was even bigger than Living on a Prayer as far as being a #1 single goes.
I mean, huge.
Yeah, I think it was a great way to close this album, though.
Yeah.
I think they hit it perfectly with the flow of this album, and Always was a great ending. One last thing, we're gonna wrap up here. One last thing I wanted to mention about this album was how Thief of Hearts and Last Man Standing was supposed to be on this album, and obviously, Thief of Hearts only made it to the box set, which was, good, and Last Man Standing. I remember when this DVD came out, it was right before the box set was coming out. And I love this version so much. And so I was excited to see it on the box set. But I thought that was going to be the end there. Then I remember in interviews, John would say, nope, we're putting it on the next album. It's going to sound different. Me personally, I love the box set version more than I love the Have a Nice Day version of Last Man Standing. Which one would you prefer more before we wrap up?
Real quick, Thief of Hearts, I like the song, but I believe John was really in a Tom Petty mood at that point, and it sounds a lot, you know what I mean? Like, because you can tell
you can definitely sense Tom Petty from that. Yeah.
I Won't Back Down. Last Man Standing, you're 100% correct, and anyone that disagrees is 100% wrong. The box set version is the true version of what that song should have been.
Yeah.
Not only are there lyric changes, and I believe there's lyric changes because maybe John didn't want to put those out there. Like, there's a clear line where he kind of like takes a rip at J-Lo and that type of music.
Yeah.
And I, no disrespect, but that the pop music, that's how John felt at the time.
Yeah.
And it is what it is.
And then that's where, and that's why I said I think that's where the album cover really influenced was Last Man Standing. So it would have been kind of unique to have that version on this album. But I'd be okay with it on the Have a Nice Day album. But thankfully we still got the This Life Feels Right version of it.
And in the DVD, and this is where is a huge fan of the band. I this is sometimes where I see it more now with John now that he's older and he's comfortable with who he was and the band's legacy. Right. Back then, I never understood why they didn't get the respect and they didn't like garner the respect that they deserved. Like John mentions in the DVD, like this is for the Tom Pettys, the Eltons, the Bob Dylans, and then he goes, and the Bon Jovis. Bon Jovi belongs in that conversation. Okay. Exactly. This is not, a hair band. This is not, some 80s band that's not out there. I mean, Bon Jovi is one of the most successful American rock bands of all time.
Yep. It's been 40 years.
Whether you don't listen to their new album because you don't listen to music anymore, or whether you just listen to the old stuff, they're still a viable touring act. They're still, Bon Jovi. And I think John's more comfortable saying that now than he was then, which is why I think he wrote that song. I think it was easier for him to put it in lyrics than just to come out and say, hey, we're Bon Jovi. We've sold 100 million records at that point, around there. It was very close at that point. I think it was like 95 million.
Yeah.
Right before the box set. So, I mean, they deserve that respect. And I think Last Man Standing was saying, hey, if you're not going to give us that respect, this is, we are one of the last man standings.
And John knew that the music industry was changing because even with their promo, this was like one of the very first albums where their promo was different. Like I remember It's My Life and Wanted being on the band's official website. That's the first time you got to hear it even before the single. And then obviously they did the same thing with Have a Nice Day, that they released Have a Nice Day and Last Man Standing digitally before the album came out. But that's for another discussion. I want to thank you for coming on today. It was great to chat. I've been dying to chat about this album for weeks now, and I'm glad that I found someone that I could really chat with.
I hope I didn't disappoint. I've watched some of the other ones, and there's a lot more to dig into when you have an actual album that is brand new versus a rehash.
Yeah, and this is kind of different because it pulled away from all the other albums that I've been doing. So it was kind of interesting to talk about the hits, but with different hits with a twist, I guess. But I want to thank you again for coming on.
It's one of my favorite photos of the band. I actually have this poster in my basement.
Yes, I love it too.
Yeah,
the photography was really. I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot to bring it up at the beginning. I love the photography in this album.
I do too. And we didn't mention this, but like if you have, I don't know what version you have in front of you, but the bonus DVD on the Japanese version with the AOL sessions, like that's to me what this album was originally intended to be.
I have that.
Yeah, you know what I mean, like. Those exactly. Those acoustic, like I think that's what it was originally intended to be, and then it kind of drifted off into something else, which I'm glad it did.
Right.
Because like you said, maybe they will release it one day, the Yokohama show or whatever. And I think if you came into the band around the same time as we did, even though I was 94, but I kind of like drifted away a little bit. it's an enjoyable time to look back on, because I
Sure.
do remember this stuff. I remember the video for Wanted 2003. I think that's what they were calling it. And
Yeah.
it gets a lot of hate, but some of it warranted. But then others, it's like
As a fan, I think you just have to look back and enjoy. Like we were talking before this, we were talking about how an album or a song would take you to a time and a place. Like I said, when my parents were getting divorced, this album was coming out. So this album kind of helped me get through that. And so every time I listen to this album, I think of myself as an 11-year-old kid just burying myself in this.
yeah.
So, but yeah, I want to thank you for coming on. It was good talking with you. I hope you're staying safe. And, now that we know that we both only live 2 hours apart, we're definitely going to have to meet up soon and talk.
All right.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.